Hey folks, how you doing? Welcome. It's a Tuesday evening, and I would like to give you an update concerning my condition, my physical condition. For those that do not know, I have upper cervical instability. This begins from infancy. I had an accident during infancy where there was head trauma and neck trauma. It never was treated, never was dealt with, and throughout my life I suffered more head and neck trauma, compounding the problem. So now in my life, I'm really disabled. Even though it looks like I'm functioning and all this other stuff, I'm in a lot of pain right now as I'm talking to you. I've been doing videos and content in pain. I take certain things to relieve the pain, but it's not drugs. I use cod liver fish oil. I use B vitamins sublingual on the tongue. One of the things about the degeneration of the vagus nerve is that it's the parasympathetic nervous system that allows your organs to be on autopilot. And when that stops working properly, and be it that I've had it for such a long period of time, the organs stop functioning properly, and some of them basically start shutting down. This is the reason why I had been bedridden twice in my life because of this. Now, I haven't been able to work. Everything is cash out of pocket at this stage for me in regards to being able to pay the physicians, because I finally found a couple physicians, a prolotherapist and a Atlas spine brain specialist, and it's costly. The prolotherapist, as an example, a complete treatment is $600, and it's very painful. Prolotherapy is basically injecting into your ligaments because the ligaments stretch out. This condition creates the stretching of ligaments, and so there's a lack of, well, it feels like you're falling apart along with the pain. It just feels like your bones are falling off your body. Your face is coming apart. It's crazy. Got so many symptoms I can't even, I have written it down. I can't remember all the symptoms, but I'm reminded throughout the day what they are. Heart skipping, vertigo, dizziness, fainting, outside of the pain and everything, which it's hard to describe the extent of pain and how it affects me. Cognitive ability, lacking in cognitive ability because of the pinching of the artery going into the brain. It causes backflow and toxification. It's just crazy. Fibromyalgia it's just a long, long list of things. And again, I haven't been able to work, so I don't have any income coming in. And so I'm looking for assistance. I'm looking for people to help me. A friend of mine by the name of Paul Garthwaite is doing a GoFund for me, and it's brought in a few dollars, and I'm literal with that, a few dollars. But bless him for doing that for me, and he's continuing to do that for me. And his wife Catherine supporting that. Very wonderful people, and I'm very thankful for individuals like him. Those are the uncommon people, and there's very few of those uncommon people in this world. This much I do know. As long as I've been within this incarnation, that is a fact. At least that's been my experience throughout my life. So I greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate your efforts and your kindness and your caring, true caring. So if anybody would like to help me, to help assist me in respect to being able to pay for this therapy, I don't want to have to sell my domicile, because it might lead to that at this stage, because I have very little cash left, and it's expensive. All this stuff is expensive. So anyhow, if you would like to donate to me, you can donate to me through PayPal. It'd be more than greatly appreciated. Any amount, doesn't matter, doesn't make any difference. Whatever you can, if you can do anything. I know money's hard at this point in time here in the world for some people. I know that to be true. It's always been that way for me, so I totally get it. But if you could help a little bit, that would be great, whatever you can do. So I'll put my email address in the description. I'll just tell you what it is now. It's easy to remember. Randy Keith, that's RandyKeith _ is, that's the word is at yahoo.com. You can go to PayPal and, send me a couple bucks or whatever. That would be great. So, anyhow, I've been thinking about George Kavassilas here lately, and I wanted to see what he was up to, and so I seen a video here, 2021, and I think the name of the YouTube channel is Etheric Dream. It's run by this gal. I don't know her name. I apologize. I really didn't even watch the whole video, but I just, watched a little bit of that. And because I was curious to what he was doing. George, if you're out there, shout out to you. Anyhow, so, yeah, he said one thing that kind of just, mainly he was talking about the same things he's been talking about for the last 5 years or so. I'm sure a lot of things have changed with him, without question. But he was just basically communicating roughly the same things. He did say one thing that kind of stirred something within me about a couple experiences that I had. He was making mention that when he would go out, such as if he went out to have a swim or something like that, and when he would get out in nature, that he was becoming more and more observant of being watched by the creatures in this world, such as birds and different animals like that, and connecting with them, in a way that he hadn't noticed before. And it reminded me of a particular time when I was 17, well, actually more closer to 18. I went back to West Virginia at 14, came back here after 3 years in California. And I went out with my friends at the time. We went up to Lido Creek, which is the mountains here, well, one of the areas here of the mountains. Commonplace. Lido Creek, I spent a lot of time there when I was a child. My mother and I would go there and spend the day there from time to time and commune with nature. It was very pleasant experiences, very fond memories. Anyhow, so we get together, Jesse Padilla, his brothers, Larry and Danny, me, of course, but Mark Roach and Tony Lechuga. Tony, that was his car, so how could I forget that? So it was like 6 of us, and we went up to Lido Creek, and we all piled out, and there was this embankment where Lido Creek has a lot of boulders, and a lot of trees, boulders, and streams. That's basically what's going on in Lido Creek, and then it's surrounded, by the mountains there. Easily accessed, easy to go to, and get away from places, and it's not too far away. But anyhow, so everybody piles out. The younger bunch go running down into that ravine where the stream's at, and there's little pools there because, like I said, there's a lot of boulders, so it creates these natural, like, little ponds, and streams run into it and fills up, and the stream continues on the other side, that type of thing. So what I was doing was I was walking down there behind them, and they were jumping in the water and, just having fun. And Mark, my friend, was behind me, and all of a sudden I had this sensation come over me, and it was like this capsule kind of went around me of energy, and immediately my demeanor and everything changed. Where I had thoughts before, I no longer had any thoughts. There was no thoughts. There was only intention. And my focus of attention within intention was what was going on with Danny and Larry jumping up and, splashing around in the water, I could feel that it was disturbing the habitat, the creatures there. They were fearful. It's like, what the heck's going on? I could feel, but there wasn't any like an emotional attachment that I had to any of it. Okay. But I was aware of what was going on there. I did have, like I said, that one intention was caring. It was just, if you could summarize it in a word, but with an intention, there is no words, there's no thoughts. This is really kind of hard to explain, but that's what I felt. I had a caring for those creatures, that they would not be afraid, So what I ended up doing is I walked into the water, and as I'm starting to do that, or before I did that actually, I telepathically communicated or spoke to Danny and Larry, please don't do that. Of course, it wasn't in words. This is hard to explain because it's not like thinking, okay? It's different, all right? So I projected that intention, please don't do that. I don't know if they heard me or not, but I couldn't speak. It was, all of a sudden it was as if like a higher aspect of who I am entered me, and the old Randy disappeared. Okay? The earth Randy is no longer resident. The body was being there. It was me, of course, but not the Randy that I knew or was aware of. This is something completely different. A different me. In a different way of perceiving things. Anyhow, so I go into the water, and a couple fish swim up to me, and they get so far around me. They get sort of like a perimeter. And thinking back, I realized it probably had to do with the current that I was holding within me. But I was letting them know, I go, it's okay. It's all right. You don't have to, everything's okay. And that's what my intention was. I just wanted to make them understand that it was fine. And bringing that energy into the pool there just calmed everything for them, And like I said, the fish swim up to me, and they're just kind of sitting there just doing this thing right there. And then there was a lizard that came up on the boulder right next to me to the right. And I walked up to it, and I was going to touch it. I wanted to touch it. I have this, ever since I can remember when I was younger, I had this affinity for reptiles. I love creatures. I like, all of them actually, but I just love them, and maybe I loved them a lot more back then than I do now, if you know what I mean. So, but the point is that I had a great affection for them, and I just wanted to walk up to him and scratch him under his chin, and instinctively, well, maybe that's not the proper way to put it, but immediately I knew, I just knew not to do that. And I think it has something to do with the current that I was holding within me. And because, there's a small little body there, and if I would touch him, that they probably couldn't handle that current, They could feel the residual of it. And that's why they were responding to me so friendly like that, because there was nothing to fear. Everything was calm, and they knew where it was coming from. And so they came up to meet me. So at any rate, long story short, when I stepped out of the pool, all of a sudden that capsule just dropped, and I was back to me again. And it was like, oh, what a drag. I wanted to stay like that, because staying like that, you could, from my perspective of what that was, I could stay like that for an eternity, and everything's perfect. I don't need any more than that. That's perfect, So it's like, I wanted to stay there. And the other time I had an experience similar to that, which was the same thing. This capsule, went around me. Or now that I think about it, it kind of reminds me of the Maharic seal, if anybody knows what that is. But at any rate, I was in the apartment, and this is prior to me becoming sick, bedridden for the first time. So I was getting in more and more in a weakened state, and I was with my mother at the time, and was in an apartment, and there was a visitor that we had there. It was a young man who was a guitar player, a teacher, and that type of thing, and he had cancer. And while there was a conversation going on in the living room, I was over by the window, and that capsule thing happened with me. And again, I couldn't say anything, couldn't talk. I tried, but couldn't do it, and everything just went. People were talking. My mother was talking, and just disappeared. And I felt like I had to do something because I knew that he was sick. And the truth is, I didn't have to do anything. I just needed to direct my intention towards him, and the energy would have done the work, through consciousness, through that intention. But, I felt like I needed to do something because my so-called training told me I needed to do something, or I felt like I needed to. So I tried to do it, and I tried to talk, and it was like, no, you can't do it. It was impossible to talk. And so what I ended up doing is just pointing my finger at him, because I felt like I had to do something. And he could feel this sensation within his diaphragm and his intestinal area, a warm feeling, and his face got all lit up, and he was smiling, and he started explaining what was going on with him. And so I knew he was being healed, And what those two situations have in common, it was about caring for life, caring for all life. It was the creatures, letting them know everything was okay, and brought peace to them, right? Because of care for them. And for this young man, he was sick, and he needed healing. So it was about caring for him. So it's just about caring for life and the mutual love for all life. When I say, like on my videos at the end, I always say, well, most of the time, I've been in a habit of doing this, and that is, remember, you are the love that you have always been. It's about the love of all life and the connection that we have with one another. When you're walking within the original design path, okay, where you're connected to everything and connected to eternal life, we can look around, we can see the fall condition, and I'm suffering within the fall condition, and the physical problems that I have and everything is the result of the fall condition. But it's important to remember who we really are and our connection with all life. And whenever we have the opportunity to be able to be of service to one another and express that love, is when we should do it. Never hesitate when it comes to that. Always respond to that and allow yourself to be open. Hence, that's the reason why I keep using that expression at the end of videos. Remember, you are the love you have always been. So anyhow, there's that. I wanted to share that with you. So, George saying what he said about that sparked that memory for me, and it's a pleasant place to go back to. It reminds me of a lot of things. Now, one thing that I come to realize with George in respect to Project Camelot and Kerry Cassidy was that I think there was two videos. One was about, excuse me a second. The first one was about having 5D consciousness here in this 3D world. And that was a decent video, There was a little bit of tension with Kerry, because Kerry's kind of like, she's ready to box somebody, That's Kerry. And, but it was, that was a pretty good video for what it was. It was rough around the edges, but, The second video, it wasn't a video actually, it was another interview, but this was during her cast, I think. Yeah. But I do remember the basic content of it. Now, Kerry Cassidy was going after George in a way that was a bit too aggressive. This was during the time when Kerry Cassidy was learning about cheilontic morphogenic science. And I want to say this, okay? I want to say this. When you start learning something and you start to have a greater understanding about something, maybe it might be to your best interest and others' best interest if you do not say too much about it until you're ready to say something about it. There's an important aspect behind self-mastery. I wish I would have learned those things earlier in my life. I'm just now starting to learn them. But self-mastery is extremely important. If you're going to be of any effect in this world on a grand scale or within, a large sphere of influence, you have to be able to control yourself. And you have to have master over certain things in regard to how you behave, how you see things, how you perceive others. If you start seeing others in the same way that you see yourself, like me speaking into the camera, imagining you on the other end, well, I'm really talking to myself in that respect. It's not just me talking to myself here, but I'm talking to myself because of the oneness aspect. So there's this respect. You have to have a love for yourself and understand the love that you are and be able to see that mirror's image of self within another individuation, with an equality. Again, respect. And Kerry was just going at George, and George was just taking it. And it was really difficult to listen to that interview. In fact, I couldn't listen to it. I had to shut it off. It was just too intense. But what happened at that time period, because of Kerry's connection with Ashiana Dean, Ashiana had invited George, I believe this to be true, based on everything that I know. I don't know this verbatim, but being able to connect the dots, Ashiana invited George to one of the workshops at that time in 2008, and George declined. And I think the reason why he declined is because, I'm just going to say it, Kerry Cassidy soured the pot. Kerry, I want to say something to you. If you're listening, stop doing this. Stop it. Please stop doing that. Stop fighting. When I was in Christianity, I was in full-fledged, at one point I was in full ministry mode. I was doing things most people weren't doing. Boots on the ground, spiritual warfare. Oh my goodness. That's a serious thing, folks. And what I learned, long story short, is that you don't go in boxing. You'll get your behind handed to you more ways than one, even having your life taken from you. Okay? You're no match for any of that. Stand within who you are as a being, and if you can't do anything else, stand in neutrality, but you're most effective if you're standing in that love for all life. That doesn't mean you're a pushover. It means you're stronger. So you're going to project that. And when you project that, that's what you get back. Or they flee from you. But anytime you go into a situation like within darkness, okay, I'm digressing a little bit here, but anytime you go into a position where there's a stronghold of darkness, you really have to walk in with that. If you're going to be of any effect, if you go in there and think that you're going just to, use certain deities' names and you're going to battle that situation, you're going to get your butt kicked. That's just straight up. That is the wrong way to do it. And I see a lot of people within the, UFO community and that type of thing in respect to certain, negative alien agendas, which is really fallen angelic agenda is what it is. Most people don't seem to understand that. And I have come full circle with that. The diversity and the different aspects of life forms is very complex. But again, if you look at the history, you can understand where I'm coming from with this. If you go to the couple videos that I did, what is the fall and who is the fallen, that'll give you enough background to know what I'm referring to. But you can't go into it fighting. I learned that. I was involved with exorcism and different things like that, and man, it about killed me. And anybody that I knew that had done that or was in that ministry, because I was I was seeking counsel before I entered into some of those situations to relieve the person of that entity. They told me when I sought counsel from people that were involved with it up to 10 years at a time, first thing that they would say, don't. I said, what can I do? And they go, don't do anything. Stay away from it. And I know exactly what they mean now. Oh, I did back then even, not at the time, but soon after that I did. So, Kerry, stop doing that. If you hadn't perhaps been so aggressive towards George, spoiling the pot, so to speak, he probably would have went to that workshop and he would have gained a lot from it. It would have been greatly to his benefit and greatly for his influence in this world, being able to share and communicate that information. Because it's the real stuff. I have no question about that. I'll be completely bold in saying this is the real stuff. Keylontic morphogenic science, the freedom teachings, Kelonta, whatever. That's the real stuff, man. And I've had affirmation over affirmation, dealing with myself personally in regard to that. Things that I knew that I only found out through Kelonta or Kelontic morphogenic science or the freedom teachings. Things I was aware of that I could not explain, that those teachings explained it to me. Nobody else or nothing else could do that or has done that except for these. So I'm bold when I say this is the real stuff. And it would have benefited George greatly. George, if you're out there, if anybody shares this and he gets an earshot of this, I send out, I'm having a hard time talking because of the pain. I send out an invitation to you to contact me. You can contact me through my email address that I gave here, or you can just contact me through this channel, RK Seeker of Truth. Okay, folks, that's it. I was going to actually try to play some music, but my keyboard just shut off. It does that automatically. I guess I can turn it back on, but I think I've done enough. I can't seem to do any more. I need to kind of call it closed here. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you, people. I love you. Blessings to you. And like I said, if you can help me out, if you can contribute a little bit towards my therapy as far as being able to pay for it, I don't know what to say other than I just would be of tremendous gratitude within my heart. I'm thankful for that. Either way, I'm thankful for you, and I appreciate you. Love you. Blessings to you. And remember, you are the love you have always been. Peace to you.